So the real challenge an entrepreneur has when he's starting a business is that he needs to pull together great people to get the business off the ground. And yet, the business is, of course, unknown. The challenge is hard. Nobody knows if this will work. And great people have a lot of options. They can do lots of other things. They are doing lots of other things, and they're doing them well, and they're being successful. So one of the biggest challenges, in many ways a much bigger challenge than raising money for a new business, is the challenge of getting great people into the new business. No entrepreneur starting off, I think, realizes quite how tough that is, and quite how much of her time needs to be spent, and her effort needs to be spent, in getting great people around her. This is probably a third of the entrepreneur's time in the first few years of a business, and one of the toughest challenges. When you're selling to an investor, first of all, we're in the business of investing in companies, so that's what we do for a living. But we also have diversification. We've invested in a lot of companies. When you're selling to a new employee, that's the only company that employee is going to work for. So it has to be a great pitch. Surrounding yourself with the best people when you've started a business is, of course, essential. You need the people who can help you understand the product market fit, understand what customers want, build that first product, get the excitement around it. Once the business has started to be successful, the entrepreneur then faces a whole new set of challenges, because the business then needs to scale up, it needs to grow. And it needs to keep that initial excitement, keep that initial spark, but be able to do it at a much, much larger scale. To do that, often you need different people. You need people who've had the experience of taking something that works in a small amount, a small scale, and making it large. People who understand processes, structure, organization, but who also have empathy and excitement for the original business and aren't going to snuff it out by bringing in some process that is too large, too bureaucratic, too structured. That's a rare skill. And entrepreneurs need to find those people, need to bring them in, need to get them excited about the business, need to make them successful in the company, while making sure, and this is tricky, that the original people don't feel that they've been pushed out, they've been marginalized. So integrating the new skills and the old skills is hard, it's essential, it's one of the crucial and most difficult parts of making the company grow. Beyond that, the entrepreneur has a real challenge, because one of the probably toughest parts of bringing these new people in is in admitting that there are things that the entrepreneur doesn't know. There's a certain amount of sublimation of the ego here, which is essential. And it's hard because good entrepreneurs have an ego. That's one of the things that makes them start and build companies, that gets people excited. And yet they get to a stage where they have to admit that they need to bring in skills and people, and they need to give them space to do things that they themselves don't know how to do. Really, that's one of the tests of entrepreneurs who can stand the test of time. Finding the right people. Clearly the most important task for a great founder, a great CEO. I mean, if you think about the CEO's job as being finding customers, finding people, finding money. The finding people is probably at least a third of it, and is probably the most intense, because you have to win them over, you have to bring them in, you have to look after them, you have to make them successful, and you can't stop. So one of the things you see in great entrepreneurs is that they're always looking for people, whether or not they've got a particular job to fill. It's a great mistake, and something big companies do all the time, which is one of the reasons small companies can beat them. It's a great mistake to think about, oh, I've got this slot to fill, or even worse, I've got this slot to fill, so I'll tell HR to go fill it, and not be looking for great people who could be successful in your company all day long. I mean, there are some extreme cases, or the good cases. The CEO of HubSpot has a rule that when he hears about somebody who's really good, he writes down the name and within 7 days makes sure that he has met that person. And if he likes the person, make sure that within the following 7 days he's made an offer to that person. So always being out there, always looking. But beyond that, you need to be looking inside, and you need to be thinking about what is the talent you have in the company, and are they in the right places? Are they doing the right kind of work? It's really important to keep the loyalty of people who've been with you from the beginning, and it's really important to look after them, to reward them, not just financially, because great companies obviously can do that, but to reward them with exciting, interesting, challenging jobs. but you need to make sure that they're in jobs that they can do and where they can be successful. And what you will find as the company grows is just because somebody was good at running a 10-person organization doesn't mean that they're good at running a 1,000-person organization, or indeed will enjoy it. And so you need to be thinking about where are the opportunities to bring new people in, what kind of people do you want to bring in, as well as what are the right roles for the people you have. So one of the tricks here is to beware of the person with the golden CV. It's really tempting when you've been building a company for a while, nobody took you seriously, everybody laughed at you, suddenly you've got a good company. Suddenly, people who worked at the companies you used to admire want to come and work for you. It's really flattering. And you get the CV from the person who's been really successful at the company that's been really successful. Chances are that person's not right for you. And the reason that person's probably not right for you is that you can't tell the difference between the success that the company brought, the fact that he got the meetings because he worked at the successful company, and his own success. You're much better off looking at the person who's been successful, even maybe less so, at a company that has struggled. Because then that person has had to deal with adversity, has had to deal with the ridicule of the customer. And getting that person into your business is much more likely to give you somebody who's going to really fight for the business. Beyond that, you need to think about jobs that didn't exist before in your business. As your company grows, you're going to need special skills that either you did yourself before or that you just didn't need. You're going to need managerial skills. Coordinating a business with 400, 500, 600 people is very different from coordinating a business with 40, 50, 60 people. And you need jobs that didn't exist, and you need to create them, ideally before you face the crisis that is inevitably going to come if you don't create them in time. And finally, and most importantly, you need to think about culture. Cultures in companies are funny things. They get created as the company struggles to survive. In the early days, a company is fairly malleable. The culture changes as people try to figure out what is the right thing to do for the customer, for the partner, for the employees, for the shareholders. But over time, those cultures set. And once they've set, they're really hard to change. So you need to think really carefully when you're bringing in somebody, particularly somebody senior, about the effect that that person is going to have on the culture that is being created in the company. Nothing worse than bringing in somebody who's really successful, but really toxic. Because the success is temporary. The toxicity will last. Conversely, if you bring somebody in who, yes, does that job really well, but more importantly, pushes the whole company to do all of the jobs really well, to be much more successful, to be much bigger, to think much more broadly, it can have a transformative effect on a business that is good and can help it become great.